joining us today. This is Robert Caruso. Today we have Darren Prescott, the CEO and founder of Mobile Urodynamics Group. Welcome, Darren.
Thank you.
As a part of our first show here, Darren, I think it would be very helpful for the folks that are listening today to give us a good idea, what exactly does Mobile Urodynamics Group do?
Essentially what we do is we provide outsourced urodynamics services for urologists and OB-GYN. Our average client, for example, on the urology side, oftentimes that urologist is going to have their own equipment, for example, or may even have a trained technician, but maintaining a trained technician and a nurse that knows how to do it and is doing it enough to become familiar with the procedure is difficult. So even though they have the equipment, they made that investment, it still makes sense sometimes to have an expert come in who does nothing but urodynamics. And on the gynecology side, in many cases, there's not enough patients for the gynecologist to actually buy equipment, and then they have the same problem that the urologists do typically, which is training a nurse who knows how to do this and does it well.
Okay, so we've kind of covered generally what you do and who your clients are. And now from a scale perspective, I understand that Mobile Urodynamics Group is the nation's largest outsourced urodynamics testing company. Is that correct?
That is correct. There really aren't any other significantly sized outsourced groups. And so we saw that as an opportunity and filled it.
Well, that's exceptional. So tell us a little bit about really how this works.
Well, what we do initially is identify a date that a clinic needs urodynamics done. And moving forward, that clinic pushes all of their urodynamic needs to that date.
They would set appointments on that date for the patients that need urodynamic studies completed?
That's exactly right. Depending upon the location, typically we have a 3-patient minimum. And so the reason for that obviously is that fuel costs are what they are, and we've got an hour of setup and an hour of tear down that it really doesn't make financial sense to send somebody out for less than that. The good news with that, though, is that there is no need for emergency urodynamics. So you can store up those patients until they've got enough to call us out. So if it's a smaller clinic and they don't have quite as many patients to do, then sometimes we only do that once every other month. So it really depends on the volume of patients and what the client wants to do.
Gotcha. So you work with every clinic in practice to come up with a schedule that works for them. There's no requirement of a weekly or a monthly visit.
Okay. No, absolutely not. The way that we work is that we're there when they need us and only when they need us. So it works out extremely well. There's a huge financial benefit to that as well. So if we come out when there's at least 3 patients, there's just a real solid margin built in for the clinic, and it enables them to not only get great studies, but also reap the financial benefit, which they're still seeing a $400 to $500, $600 reimbursement and profit margin on each study that we do for them.
And that's without the expense of a technician, the equipment, or even the supplies are included?
That's right. Yeah, there's absolutely no expense involved for the clinic at all. The only thing the clinic is really responsible for is providing the patient in the room. So we need an exam room, which is just a typical standard exam room. And within a few weeks, they're reimbursed for the study with a nice solid profit margin involved as well.
Well, that kind of leads us, I guess, to the advantages. Now, you've mentioned that you're providing the experienced technicians that this is what they do and this is where their focus is. What are some of the other advantages of why a urology clinic or a gynecology clinic would utilize your services?
Well, the biggest advantage, without question, is going to be the medical data available to help make a proper diagnosis for the patient. Without, all of the data, it's hard to know exactly what needs to be done. And just to give you an example, sometimes if the patient has a significant prolapse and has had one for a while, then the urethral sphincter actually, it gets compromised. And so without a reduced valsalva point pressure, it's difficult sometimes to know what the state of that sphincter is. So with a urodynamic study, you'll know for sure where that sphincter is. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having more information prior to a surgery or prior to outlining any sort of treatment plan.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. My understanding is the report is available quicker when it's done in an outsourced fashion the way you guys do it?
Yeah, by having us do it there in the clinic, the patient comes to the same familiar clinic they're used to, and when we're finished with it, we're able to place that report directly into the patient's file.
The advantages seem pretty fantastic. Seems like you've really got this down. The question I'm thinking here is there any startup or setup or monthly fees associated with your service?
None. There are no contractual obligations. There's no startup fees, no monthly fees. We really supply everything. There's absolutely no cost whatsoever. There's no responsibility by the clinic whatsoever. We're there when the clinics need us and only when they need us.
Well, that's perfect. Well, that leads us to, what does the financial situation look like here by using your service? When we talked originally about the costs associated, you had mentioned to me that your costs are between $350 and $450 per study. Is that the case?
That is right, yeah. Depends on volume. Obviously, the more volume we do, it makes the trip worth it. One of our significant costs, obviously, is travel expenses in a mobile type of operation like ours. There are significant financial advantages for us to do more patients at each visit, and we're willing to pass those savings on to our clients. And so even at the very lowest volume level, which would be 3 patients at $450 a patient, if you look at that, typically, reimbursements are about $950 a patient, and there are going to be some we've seen that are in the $1,500 to $1,600 range, and there are some who are, for example, on insurance carriers who only reimburse at $700. But the average for across the board has been about $950. And so, if the clinic is paying us $450 and being reimbursed at $950, there's a significant profit margin built in there.
That's absolutely fabulous. Any additional information that you think would be helpful to our listeners today regarding your service?
Well, more than anything else, I think that there has been some hesitation in the past in utilizing urodynamics at all. In medical school in the past, it hadn't been pushed very hard. There wasn't a lot known about it until really a few of the urologists, Dr. Ed McGuire and a few others, who have created these urodynamic studies that give incredibly valuable information. And what you see now is the insurance companies, particularly, let's say Medicare, in almost all cases, the reimbursements are dropping like a rock for procedures. And you see this from surgeries to just about anything. Although what you see on the urodynamic side is you see it going up. And it's gone up for the past 2 years, 3 years actually. And there's a reason for that. The main reason is that it provides such valuable information and oftentimes rules out an unnecessary surgery. The insurance companies, I've never heard of them pushing back on a urodynamic study. They're eager to have that done for 2 reasons. First of all, to rule out an unnecessary surgery, as we said. But secondly, it provides a great baseline to find out if we're using medications or even behavior modification. Is the treatment working? So if you have a baseline before you go into all of that, you get an idea of whether or not we're moving the ball. And a urodynamic study will provide that.
That makes perfect sense. Well, Darren, how would somebody that's watching or listening today, how would they get in touch with you in order to get more information and move forward?
Well, I think probably the best way initially would be to give us a call at 800-822-9147. There's also some great information on our website. That's www.mobile-uro.com.
Perfect. Well, Darren, I appreciate your time today on behalf of Darren and Mobile Urodynamics Group. This is Robert Caruso. Join us next month where we'll start talking about some of the detailed tests that are conducted during a study and things that can help in diagnosis and taking care of your patient. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month.